So over the past week, I've been considering what's the next build gonna be. You know, the next gun in the line of guns that get outed through the map. And as I looked through the wish machine, and I fell in love with the MPS5 Kumawink, so I bought it. And well, let's just say I was less than impressed. But we'll talk about it. What up, gang? Shout out to all my thugs, nerds, geeks, and freaks. Everybody who tuned in to the last video, the best little jaws builds you've never seen. I want to let y'all know I appreciate it. The comments, the likes, it all went a long way. Let's go upstairs and get right into this bounce build and what we got going on and why. All right. And I added some extra lights in here so it's not so dark, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? All right. So we'll go straight into bounce. The bounce is a special ammo effect, much like shrapnel is a special ammo effect. So you notice those are the only two weapons with special ammo effects in the whole game, right? So bounce and shrapnel are your only two special ammo effects. So hitting the enemy with the bullet, upon hitting the enemy with the bullet, bounce will hit a random enemy within 10-meter radius to deal weapon damage of 60% of the attack. All right. The element type is the same as the weapons element. The additional damage can create the strike weak spot and will decay with distance. So basically they're saying that the bounce is the same as this. There's no, like, you know how on unstable bomber you have element damage and then you have status damage, and they're like two different things. Like for instance, you have status damage here and then you have frost damage, so it's two different damage. Well, this is basically telling you that they are the same. So it's going to be weapon damage and it's going to be weapon damage here. It's going to be the same thing. All right. That's basically what that's saying. So this weapon has a 25% chance to trigger bounce on a hit. All right. When hitting the weak spot, the bounce chance for that hit is plus 60%. So ultimately you want to aim at the weak spots. All right. Because aiming at the weak spot will increase the trigger chance for bounce. All right. So it'll go from 25% chance to a 60% chance to trigger bounce as long as you're hitting the weak spot. All right, the bounce base damage is going to be plus 50%. And when the magazine capacity is below 50%, bounce trigger count will be plus 1. All right, that's real interesting to know. All right, so for this bounce build, I am using a 4-piece renegade. So I'm using mask, I'm using the top, using the gloves, and then the boots. All right. My key piece is gonna be the prickly dance pants. All right, and they bounce has 100% chance to bounce again upon a hit, dealing 100% of bounce damage. All right, so when bounce hits an enemy, is 100% chance that it's gonna bounce again. All right, it's gonna hit another enemy, and that's what you want to keep that bounce going. All right, I'm using 1-piece lone wolf, and it's for the mag capacity. All right. Let's just dive into the mods while we're here. So I'm using bounce rampage precision. Okay, bounce deals more damage as more targets are hit, up to damage plus 45%. Okay, and I'm using all precision mods for this build. All right, so this mod goes right into those pants because those pants will ensure that the bounce keeps bouncing, and this will ensure that the bounce keeps getting more damage as it bounces. All right. So I kind of like wanted some symmetry, and that's like all I could find because the mods for this are so specific. There's not a lot of flexibility here. All right, we got weak spot damage, damage against great ones, weapon damage reduction, and weapon damage. All right, for the accessories, they're all gold. Gonna be a fluid flash hide on the muzzle, compact reflex sight, the compact infrared indicator, and the weighted SMG, and these are all gonna be whatever you want it to be. So it'll be your choice on all these mods, but I would say all your mods, it's going to be your choice on the accessories. I would say all the mods should be precision mods. All right. For my helmet, I am using momentum up precision. All right, fire rate plus 10% for the first 50% of the magazine, and weapon damage plus 30% for the next 50% of the magazine. And this goes directly towards the gun because The second half of the mag on the gun gives you a +1 trigger chance for bounce. So we got that +1 trigger chance, meaning we can proc more bounces, and then we also have 30% more weapon damage on that 50% of the mag that's triggering +1 bounce. So as the mag decreases, the weapon damage will go up. You know what I mean? So this ties directly into the gun itself and the mechanics of the weapon. All right. For the mask, I'm using precision bounce. All right, the 6th bounce is a precision bounce and deals 100% damage as a critical hit. All right, so now you know that I have the bounce keeps bouncing. The more damage it picks up, it keep, you know, as it bounces, it's creating more damage. And then the 6th bounce is going to be a precision bounce and it's going to deal 100% damage as a critical hit. So this is just like the symmetry of the bounce, you know what I mean, just keeping it bouncing. So this is going to be weak spot damage, damage against great ones, damage against normal enemies, and max HP. For the chest, you guys know I go for survivability over damage, so I don't really do the blue mods in the chest. So this is going to be head-on conflict precision. Having enemies within 7 meters around you is going to grant me 10% damage reduction. Taking melee damage from enemies is going to grant an extra 10% damage reduction for 5 seconds. All of the mobs do melee damage. Okay, so whenever you're in silo and you're surrounded by the monsters, they're gonna do melee damage, whereas Rosetta is gonna use weapon damage. Okay, so got weak spot, status damage reduction, weapon damage, max at 6%, and then damage against elites. And all my mods, I can use better mods. Okay, so we're not even gonna go there. Bullet siphon precision on the pants, weapon damage plus 5%. Every 5 bullets consumed in the magazine grants 4% weapon damage, capped at 20%. All of this stuff that you see, I'm going to have either going to weak spot damage or weapon damage, right? Because I'm shooting at the weak spot and I want weapon damage because the bounce is based on weapon damage, okay? And we got weapon damage 9% max, damage against elite enemies. We got damage against normal enemies and a reload speed bonus, okay? For the gloves, I'm using munitions amplifier. Gonna give me weapon damage plus 15%, weak spot damage, damage against normal enemies, weapon damage, and then weapon damage reduction. Once again, we got weapon damage on the core effect, and then I got weapon damage down in the attributes. Okay, so weapon damage on top of weapon damage. So this is gonna be another 19.8% weapon damage that we're gonna get right out of this mod right here. So basically another 20%. And then on the shoes, I'm using Covered Advanced. There is no better mod for a run and gun build than Covered. And anytime using the SMG, consider yourself in a run and gun build because the SMG is a close range weapon. All right, so you want to be running and gunning, meaning you're going to be in and out with the enemies. You're going to be taking some damage. You're going to be hiding a little bit. So there's nothing better than Covered Advanced. It's literally best in slot. All right. Weak spot damage, status damage reduction, damage against elite enemies, and then I got damage against normal enemies. Okay, so these are the mods. This is how we rolling. Let's take the gun out, get on one knee so it doesn't go away while we do this. All right, so PSI intensity has nothing to do with our build on this mod, right? It's all about the weapon damage, that 333. All right, so let's look at the overall stats while we set basic. Okay, no buffs. Got 8% crit rate, 30% crit damage. It really doesn't matter. But then we have 124% weak spot damage. Okay, we got 76% weapon damage, which is amazing. Okay, and then we got some buffs to the elites, boss enemies, common enemies, and bonus damage to bosses, etc., etc. We got a fire rate of 825, magazine capacity of 73. Bounce damage bonus is going to be 15% because we don't have any bounce specific mods in the actual gun, which is something I want to fix over the next, I don't know, week or something. So I'm going to be doing some public events. Now, before we get going on these dummies, there's something you should know. All right. If you bought this gun and you've been shooting at the dummy and your damage seems kind of low. But that damage is probably kind of low because you aren't receiving the key effect of the bounce. All right, so you receive 0 bounce while you're in here, meaning that the dummies, the game doesn't recognize the dummies as enemies. So when you're shooting this dummy, you should be getting bounce procs off that dummy and then bounce procs off that dummy. But you aren't getting any of those bounce procs because it doesn't recognize the dummy as an enemy. All right. So, and I'll just do my normal 3 mag dump because we should be able to get all our Archer's focus buffs and everything in 3 mags. Alright, so 230k total damage, and the DPS was what the DPS was. So you see the DPS could spike up to about 30k DPS, 31k DPS as the mag gets empty. And like I said, about 220k total DPS. Now, I wouldn't say those are the best numbers, and it's hard to get the actual damage factor when you can't get the keyword effect to proc off the dummy. So the only way to test this is in real time. So we're gonna run the silo Theta, and I'll show you in real time what this gun does, and then we'll discuss what its major problems are while we're in action. So I'll catch you guys at Theta in 2 seconds. Alright, so here we are, silo Theta, full transparency. I had a crumbly bread and a malt ale before entering this silo. Just to keep my sanity down and just increase my damage a little bit. And we'll go into why I use those things. I mean, you should always use buffs when entering these silos. But specifically, I'm using the buffs because the time to kill on this particular build is very slow. All right. It's really based in crowd control. All right. But what you'll see is that you hit this first enemy and you get the bounces to all the other enemies within the 10 meters, right? So I was able to take all those guys down pretty easy, right? Easy. Because the bounce is creating so much damage on the bounce. Which makes the bounce amazing, right? Look, and drop that guy, drop that other guy, and then you're able to hit enemies around the corner that you didn't even know were there, simply based off the bounce factor. But it doesn't do well against high HP single targets. All right, that's where this gun doesn't do well at all. So if you look at it, I'm shooting that target and I hit all those guys around the corner that I couldn't even really see, and that makes the bounce worth. All right, but then you'll see sometimes I get a big target like this guy down here, and it takes a lot, right, to get this guy down. And now he's charging, and I got no basic damage against him, so I've got to like weave him up. So to make this gun work, you're gonna have to adjust your playstyle a whole lot, especially if you're used to just face taking everything. You're not gonna be able to do that with this particular weapon, because the time to kill is so low, but the crowd control is pretty good. The increased fire rate, it helps in the beginning because it allows you to get a ton of bullets out and a ton of bounces out. And then the additional damage on the back end of the magazine comes in handy as well. So this allows you to, so if you see now, I'm hitting multiple enemies, striking them like 4K a bullet. And it's wonderful. Look at this. I don't even have to aim at any of those guys to kill them. Right? But I don't kill as fast. So if you remember with the little Jaws build, man, I would kill super fast. And then the AoE would like do damage to all the guys surrounding me. Now there's gonna be a void enemy here. I'm not gonna be able to do anything to him at all. So we're gonna have to end up running from this guy and running for our lives. And there you guys, look at him. We ain't gonna be able to do nothing with him. Let's hope he stays away from us right now. I don't have little jaws with me, so no unstable bomber. All right, and like just like that, we out of here. We out of here. Make sure you're not following me. And we'll go in here and we'll see this big guy. I don't think we should have too much trouble with this guy, for the simple fact that he comes with a lot of friends. Okay, the more friends, the merrier. If he was by himself, we'd be in trouble. Because this gun struggles against single enemies. And when we're talking about fixes, I think that's one of the things they should do is they should put language into the build that says when there's only one enemy, X% chance for the bounce to strike the same enemy, right? And I think they need to add that to the actual keyword effect of bounce, not add it to a mod, because a mod doesn't really help you out in that sense. Now the bounce is bouncing off my dog, okay? So that's crazy too. And now it's bouncing off everything in the room. It's bouncing off everything in the room within that 10-meter radius. Which brings me to another thing. They should extend the radius of the bounce 15 meters, 20 meters tops. I think 10 meters for the bounce is not far enough. All right. So I would like to see the bounce get actually extended to 15, if not 20 meters for the bounce, because I think they have a mod that anything more than 20 meters on the bounce or something like that. So they need to increase the bounce, if not for all weapons, and I think it should be all weapons. They should increase it. Like it should be in the keyword effect for bounce. Take that, motherfucker. Should be in the keyword effect for bounce. That if there's only one enemy, bounce has an X percentage chance to strike that same enemy, because right now bounce won't bounce to itself. So if you hit one enemy and that enemy is the only enemy in the vicinity, your bounce won't bounce back to that enemy. Okay, so I think that's one of the downfalls of bounce. See, it was bouncing off this. See that? But as long as you have more enemies around, but here is where you're gonna see the true struggle of bounce. Okay, I can't even put my DV in. Oh yeah, I can. Okay, cool. I have them. But here's where you're gonna see the true struggles of bounce. Because until those other enemies spawn, I'm in trouble, right? Uh-oh, I think I'm doing better than I think right now, because last time I was struggling in this joint. Oh, struggling again. This guy will not leave me alone. He is the worst enemy to have around, right? I can't get enough DPS to get him down. Look at this guy, he's chasing me. It makes the fight tough because the damage is so low. Oh, I thought I could escape that. I couldn't. And so this is where the battle. I don't have. This is where the build struggles, right? It struggles because it can't kill anything fast enough. It just does like. But I think now we'll get them down now. All right. That was tough. That was really tough. That was really tough. Really tough. I didn't like it. So you see, I only got 25 controllers, right? So I gotta be cautious with these things. Gotta stop doing the silo and using my controllers. But anyway, there's the build. I hope you liked it. It definitely could use some attention from the devs. As far as the bouncing further, the bounce hitting, bouncing back and being able to hit the single target when you have a single target, because bounce doesn't bounce against a single target. And that's it. So we'll catch you guys in the next one. You got any ideas? Drop them in the comment section. Catch you on the next one.